Okay guys, it's a day later. Let's take a look at the Bakelite repair. This first section right here again is just where I put some of the filler in, and then laid a bead of super glue over the top of it, and then used shipping tape over the top of that. And again, it kind of did smear the super glue outside the seam. And I'm not sure it feels flush either. And then the second section right here, again, I use the other epoxy that's really made for wood, and then put some of the pigments in, and we'll sand it off. But let's start out here by removing this shipping tape and look at this first section. Okay, I'll probably, looks like part of the shipping tape is still there. Let me grab something here so I can kind of get underneath that. And, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the residue itself. Let me see if I can find my gook and clean this off here in just a bit. But before I do, let me grab some sandpaper. And let's just go ahead and knock this off. I might be able to even knock this off as well, and we'll just compare the results for both segments of the repair. See which one has the best results. Okay guys, I'm back with you. I'm going to try to hold this in an angle where we can see it well. This end right here, from this cavity right here back, was done with the super glue and using the chalk fillers or pigments to match the Bakelite. And you can see it fell out when I sanded. I think the reason why I put the chalk fillers in and then I put the super glue over the top, and I just don't think it had a chance to penetrate down through that, or it just wouldn't adhere. Now, just the opposite results from about this line right here back up. This is the epoxy, the wood epoxy with the pigments. So it stayed in place, and you can see the cavity here, if that's showing up on camera, held. And again, this is a stainable product, so I tell you what I'm going to do, just for the heck of it, I'm going to take a little bit of stain and just wipe it over this Bakelite, and I really want to just see what this area looks like right in here, if I'm able to hide that. If not, I'll actually just wipe off the stain and just pull out some of my marking pens. But actually, if you look at this, you can still, see the crack, but it's not very noticeable at all. And again, I'm under a bright light here, so you can, where it really shows itself. So overall, fairly pleased. But let me just see if I can kind of darken this area up in here and just see what it looks like. Now again, you'll notice some scratches there in the Bakelite. I would need to go back with some finer sandpaper and just kind of keep working those out, and just finish it up with some Novus polish, and I think I could get those out. Another lesson learned again, when I was doing the blending of the pigments, you guys probably noticed I scattered those pigments all over, and the reason why, I was just wanting to see how close I could get the color or the hue to match the Bakelite. I think the secret to the success is make sure the epoxy itself and the pigments are as close to your break line as possible, and then just clean up the adjacent areas. Of course, I'll build that up just a little bit and then sand it back down, but just have a very small area to sand off, and then you don't risk the possibility of dulling up or damaging the Bakelite finish outside the repair area. But again, the purpose of the experiment itself was to more match the hues. But yeah, the super glue trick here. I think it would fill in really well, but with the pigments or the chalk, it just did not adhere. You can see it just broke right out. And over here, I'm less than 24 hours. I've still got good adherence in this area. Okay guys, I may have hit on something. Again, I used the epoxy, tried to mix up some pastel chalk sticks as a filler, and got somewhat decent results. So what you see now are actually wax sticks. What I did was start with the darker colors and just went across the Bakelite and just blended all these colors together. And I don't know if there's really a magic recipe. What I was looking for is something that looks similar to the existing Bakelite when it was kind of washed or wet. And it's kind of a mingly, it's got a little bit of a red hue to it, you can see. And then just take some 400 grit sandpaper and ever so lightly just go back over the top to kind of blend the colors back in and try to get the surface as flush as possible. For my top coat, I'm going to use a polyacrylic water-based Minwax, and we'll stick that on and see if I can get that to adhere to the fill sticks and the Bakelite without flaking off. I'll apply a very, very thin coat in the beginning. We'll let that dry, set up for a couple hours. I'll come back and knock that down with some, I think 320 grit's what it recommends. Maybe I'll even use the 400 here and just hit it every so lightly. Remove the dust that's left over from the poly, and then reapply a second coat. Repeat that same process and probably a third or fourth or maybe even a fifth coat. See if I can build this up, and then just let it be for a few days and just see what it looks like. So if it's repeatable and it's solid, I'll probably move forward with this process. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. Appreciate you joining. Again, I'll just go ahead and get a coat of the poly here. I'll show that real quick at the end of the video, and then we'll pick back up maybe next week and look at the results after 3, 4, 5 coats of poly sanded, and see what you guys think and what I think. The whole thing may be a failure, but again, as I mentioned, I think in the video that I published, you'll never know if you don't try. Alrighty, let me get this poly here put on. And for those that are putting this on, one thing you never want to do is shake the can. You'll get air bubbles. So just pop it open, make sure it's been sitting for an hour or so, which this has been. And I will stir it every so slightly from the bottom of the can and try to reduce any air bubbles. And I'll wet the brush down as well with water, and then get the excess water out, and that will reduce air bubbles as well. Just a trick I learned from someone else doing woodworking repair with the poly product. Okay, I've got the one coat of the polyacrylic protective finish on. And again, this will need to set up and dry for 2+ hours, and then I'll sand it back down. I'll probably just use some of the 400 grit paper that I have, and a little small sanding block. Try to keep it as flush as possible. Then I'll remove the dust, apply another coat, and repeat the process until I can build the surface up where it's nice and smooth. Anyway, this product's not made for Bakelite or plastic that I can see, but yeah, I just thought it'd be worth a try just to see if it works or not, and I can get any adhesion with the over the top of the wax, which is not made for that either. But again, you never know unless you try. So one thing that I really do like is how I was able to use the wax fill sticks and create these kind of swirls and different designs within the Bakelite. So I think that really just brings some potential forward that somebody can take this idea and improve upon it. You know, in lieu of doing a complete paint over, which is going to just look plain brown, plain black, plain white. This definitely gives it some personality, and I hope it's showing up on camera, some of the swirls and some of the different colors and hues that you're able to bring out by, again, using these multicolor and blending of the wax fill sticks, and then taking a piece of 400 grit sandpaper and just kind of, you know, blending in. Use your imagination there. So folks, that's it for now. I'll post an update here after I, again, sand this off, repeat the process, and if it's a complete failure, you'll be the first to know. We'll learn together. So thanks again for watching and subscribing to my channel. It's much appreciated.